The movie begins with Sang Yu, a poor scriptwriter with no friends and deceased parents. He hasn't been able to sleep in over 6 months because every time that he does, a demon appears in his dreams and transforms them into violent nightmares. That night, Sang Yu is dreaming about being in the subway when the demon arrives. He grabs him by the hair and after making a hole on the floor, puts his head through it and kills him. He wakes up right after his dream self dies and intends to do some writing, but his landlord knocks at his door. So Sang Yu escapes through the window because he doesn't have the rent money. As he walks the streets, he stops at a food stand and asks for a crepe with no eggs because that's all that he can afford. But the crepe man adds an egg anyway as a free treat. While he waits for his meal, he watches the cafe across the street where Hua, the girl he has a crush on, works. He met her years ago when he was hanging out at a bar with some friends, and she was there playing with her band. Once his crepe is ready, Sang Yu sits down to enjoy it, but he's suddenly startled by Sang Ji, his manager. Sang Yu starts running away and drops his crepe on the way, but he's too weak to go too far, and Sang Ji eventually catches him. He takes him to a restaurant where he makes him watch as he eats, scolding him for not respecting his contract and not handing in a script in time. Afterward, Sang Yu returns to his apartment, only to find it locked and all of his stuff in the hallway. His landlord has finally decided to kick him out. He goes to a cafe to see if he can get some writing done there, but he's too hungry to think, and he ends up falling asleep. The demon appears behind him then, puts his chains around Sang Yu's neck, and starts banging his head on the table. Sang Yu wakes up in the morning and discovers his laptop has been stolen. In despair, Sang Yu sends Sang Ji a message telling him he'll kill himself. He chooses the roof of the building across Hwaer's cafe and watches her as he steps onto the edge, ready to jump. But the crepe man interrupts him by offering him free food. The man joins him on the roof, and while Sang Yu eats, he tells him about people's different views on death and dreams, and reaches a simple conclusion. When Sang Yu is having these nightmares, he should tell himself, "I'm dreaming," to be able to get out of them faster. Sang Yu goes to a convenience store where the food he purchases is eaten outside. Moments later, Sang Yu is shocked to be suddenly approached by Hwaer. Unfortunately, Hwaer is actually the demon, who starts pushing him against the glass. This, to the store clerk, looks like Sang Yu is having some kind of panic attack. The demon picks up Sang Yu and he stabs him with his sword. He throws him through the window. Sang Yu holds onto the sword as he remembers the crepe man's advice and reminds himself that he's dreaming, which allows him to wake up right in the middle of being thrown. In real life, he's also flying through the shattered glass, and while he isn't stabbed, he mysteriously finds the demon's sword in his hands. He runs away before the ambulance that the clerk called for arrives, and he stays at the park all night, examining the sword and making sure he isn't dreaming again. The next morning, he takes it to a pawn shop, where he gets paid good money for it. Sang Yu wastes no time and starts to spend the money. He gets a new computer, eats at a nice restaurant, and stays at a fancy hotel. When night falls, he takes some sleeping pills and waits for his usual dream to kick in. Shortly after, the demon appears, chasing after him with a giant gold axe. The demon hits him with his weapon and tosses him around, causing quite a number of injuries. But after a few hits, Sang Yu manages to grab the axe and says, "I'm dreaming!" Once again, he wakes up with the weapon in his hand and no wounds to be seen. The axe is sold at the same pawn shop and the money is immediately spent again. That night, he's trying a new trick. He looks at pictures of an important museum in a book before falling asleep, and the trick works because the dream happens to be in the exact same place. This time, the demon arrives with a firearm, which goes against Sang Yu's plan. He begins running and dodging the bullets, but eventually, the demon catches up with him and kills him. Sang Yu wakes up in his hotel bedroom, but since he didn't manage to grab anything, he swallows a sleeping pill. Back in the dream, he begins running again, and after dodging a couple of bullets, he grabs 2 antiques before saying, "I'm dreaming," and waking up. This time, Sang Yu takes the treasure to professional antique dealers that make business with rich collectors. He gets 2 million for them. When he's leaving the shop, he's approached by an angry Sanji, who'd thought he was dead. Sang Yu invites him to eat at a fancy restaurant and pays him back the money that he'd given him for the script, telling him he doesn't write anymore. The next day, he finally enters Huer's cafe and asks her if she recognizes him, but she doesn't. He also asks her why she's selling the cafe, and she explains it's because she's had no clients, and the shop only creates debt. Later at night, Sang Yu gets drunk while having dinner with Sanji, who wants to know the secret to his success. Sanji takes Sang Yu back to his hotel, and after putting him into bed, he pretends to leave. Shortly after, he's suddenly startled when Sang Yu wakes up with gold chains in his hands, and now that he knows the secret, begs his friend to let him help him with this new business of his, which Sang Yu considers for a while. The following day, Sang Yu buys Huer's cafe and tells her he still wants her to run it. They can share the earnings, but he'll be in charge of covering the losses. From then on, Sang Yu goes into dream adventures regularly while Sanji protects his sleeping body. Some of his dreams include robbing a bank, where he shows how much control he's learning to have over his powers. He's starting to fight the demon back, and he can move objects around with his mind. He also starts bringing bigger objects back, like a luxurious car. Sometime later, Huer's cafe is full of clients because Sang Yu has sent Sanji to pay people on the streets to come. He's also left a bag of money for the crepe man as a thank you for the times that he's shared a free meal with him. After the shop closes, Sang Yu goes for a walk with Huer, who guesses based on only a few words that he's a scriptwriter. Sang Yu begins to walk her home every day after work, and one night, he lets her drive the luxurious car from his dream, which he tells her is for her. Such fortune makes her assume he's a very famous scriptwriter. While she drives through the night, Sang Yu remembers the day that he met her. After her show, he saw her crying following a fight with her ex, and afterward, he followed her to the movies a couple of times. Sang Yu decides to take her to the movies in the present, which Huer accepts, but it also makes her wonder when they'll go to see a movie that he wrote. Not wanting to be caught in his lie, Sang Yu writes a script for real and gives it to Sanji to read while he dreams, which Sanji finds to be amazing. They plan to sell the script to a movie company, offering them their own money to hire the biggest stars and make a huge success out of it. They even create a special dinner event to commemorate him, and he takes Huer as his +1. A couple of days later, during a dream, Sang Yu discovers something very peculiar. There's the body of a monk meditating, and when he tries to take his belt, his hand disintegrates. He doesn't give up though, so once his hand is back, he tries again. As he removes the belt from the monk, the man moves to touch his chest with 2 smoking fingers. But Sang Yu doesn't look too worried about it. The usual demon doesn't show up, and the treasure and the monk disintegrate too. One night, Sang Yu takes Huer to the roof where he almost killed himself and shows her a firework display. Later, Sang Yu is at Huer's apartment where he finds himself having to leave because suddenly there's something hitting him on the chest, and when he checks it in the mirror, he sees 2 smoking black lines on his skin. Sanji gets ready to collect that night's treasure, but Sang Yu tells him that it's not necessary. This time, he's sleeping alone. The dream makes him appear in a tall, empty building with a mysterious figure waiting at the balcony. Sang Yu comes closer and discovers it's a version of his older self that is now disintegrating. When he wakes up, he discovers he has a new scar on his shoulder, and more scars show up as hours pass, all of them matching a spot where the demon had hurt him in previous dreams. The following morning, he goes to see the crepe man to see if he has any more advice, but when he's about to arrive to his destination, a van appears next to him and he gets kidnapped. Sang Yu discovers he's at an abandoned building surrounded by a gang of criminals whose leader is Cheng Ji. Sang Ju pays them 10 million to release him, but they take the money along with Sanji, who is the one who brought it as Cheng Ji demands more. So Sang Yu takes the whole group back to his apartment together with an unconscious Sanji. where he shows them his hidden room with all of his antiques. Meanwhile, Uer arrives at the building to see him, and the receptionist lets her in. She gets captured upon exiting the elevator. Sanji secretly begins to wake up. Shortly after, Uer kicks Chang Ji in self-defense. And that's the chance that Sanji uses to jump in with a vase that he uses to hit the man holding her down. Sang Yu bites the thug holding him and manages to escape, but not without getting stabbed first. The three of them run away, but not too far, as Sang Yu can barely walk because of his wounds. The men catch up to them on the stairs, and one of them manages to stab Sang Yu again. But Sanji sacrifices himself by staying behind and distracting the thugs while Sang Yu and Uer escape. One of the thugs manages to capture Sang Yu and Uer upstairs, beating them up. The two of them pass out, and Sang Yu suddenly finds himself in some mysterious ruins, covered in a black substance that quickly goes away when he starts moving. After looking around, he touches a glowing door arc and starts seeing a flashback of his life from the last few months, including both real life and dreams, and even a version of him that was taken by the ambulance that night outside the convenience store. When that's over, he walks to an area with a giant crystal wall, which he starts hitting as he repeats, "I'm dreaming," over and over until he passes out from blood loss. Suddenly, his body starts transforming, and Sang Yu finds himself becoming the demon. With the machete that appears in his hand, he starts hitting the crystal wall while picturing himself as the demon in various conversations that already happened, but giving them a twist. When the walls finally break, the demon comes out in Sang Yu's living room, where Sang Yu's body is waking up as well. The demon kills all the thugs without hesitation. Then, he comes after Sang Yu, ready to kill him as well. But he mumbles, "I'm dreaming," and all the antiques he's brought from their dreams start disappearing, both in his apartment and the rich people's collections. Sang Yu falls unconscious yet again, and when he wakes up, he finds himself all the way back on the night outside the convenience store. Uer finds him and remembers him from the concert, so she takes him to her place to give him some food. While he eats, she offers him a job at her cafe, which causes him to break down and start crying. It's revealed that at this time, Uer has always known he's been stalking her. Sometime later, while they're working at the cafe, Uer gives Sang Yu a brand new laptop for him to write on. Afterward, Sang Yu meets Sanji at a restaurant to give him back his scriptwriting money, but Sanji turns down the money and gives him more in return, because he's managed to sell one of Sang Yu's old scripts. After some time, Sang Yu goes to see the crepe man to order some food, so the man takes the chance to give him back his money, and shows him a scar on his stomach, because he used to have the same power as well, and learned this humble life is preferable. As Sang Yu listens to his story, the ruins from his last dream appear behind him, and it's revealed the new demon that killed the thugs has been following him since he reappeared at the convenience store. Okay, that was a pretty interesting plot. I would love to hear what you thought about it in the comment section below. And hey, while you're leaving a comment, make sure that you're subscribed to our channel and that you click that like button on this video. Alright, so if you want to keep binging more movie recaps, make sure you click that video on screen now. If you haven't tried binging our movie recaps yet, perhaps now's the time to try. Go make some popcorn, grab a soda, and click this video that's on screen now. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next movie recap.